Hello and welcome, everyone. Please let me know if you can hear me in the chat below. Hello, I see some people introducing themselves in the chat. Welcome. So great to have you here this evening. All right. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for Evolving Your Attachment Style. Please introduce yourself in the chat and let us know where in the world you're watching from. It's so great to see people from around the world. Thank you for letting me know that you're able to hear me. So I'm Jennifer Zundel, author of the book, Dear Beloved Manifesting Love Journal, The Daily Practices to Attract Your Soulmate. The book is available on Amazon. I'm also a certified Calling in the One coach, supporting singles to identify and release the hidden inner obstacles that have been keeping love away so that you can become magnetic to love and finally manifest your soulmate. I'm also a certified conscious uncoupling coach, supporting those going through the pain of breakup to heal their hearts, reclaim their power, and create the happiness in their relationships that they desire. Both of these programs were created by my mentor, Catherine Woodward Thomas, who's a licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been working with Catherine directly now for over 10 years, and I'm one of her coaches certified to guide you through these programs. The reason I'm so excited about the work that I do is that I know that your heart deeply desires to create a meaningful connection with someone who adores you and cherishes you. A relationship where there's chemistry and shared values and a shared vision for the future that you desire to create together. Let me know in the chat if what I've just described sounds like something that you're wanting to create in your life. In today's conversation, we're going to be talking about attachment styles. We'll be talking about what they are and how they're influencing your relationships and what you can do about changing your own attachment style so that you can create the kind of happy, healthy love that you desire. And so, as we're getting started here, I want to encourage you to silence your phones, close the other windows on your computer, let go of multitasking so that you can really be available for this conversation because your love life matters, your heart matters, and your desires matter. You might also want to get pen and paper to take some notes because I'm probably going to be sharing with you some material that you might want to jot down some comments about. I also ask that you be generous with your time and with me today because I have so much to share with you. And so you might want to stay on for an extra 10 minutes at the end so that we can make sure to get through all the material that I have to share with you. And then at the end, I'll stay on and answer some questions that you might have. If you have questions as we go along, do put those in the chat and I'll come back and answer them at the end. And as well, for those that stay on until the end of the call, I have a free gift to share with you. So let's jump in and start talking about attachment styles. Your attachment style refers to the specific way of relating to other people in your relationships. Attachment theory was created by the psychiatrist Dr. John Bowlby. In his research, he focused on attachment styles in the 1950s, and he observed that our attachment style is formed in our early life and early childhood most often in response to our caregivers, in response to how they were relating to us. And so our attachment style was formed in those early childhood years, and yet it still shows up and influences our adult relationships because it's thought that the ways that we related to our adult relationships and our caregivers actually mirrors the experience and the dynamics that we have in our adult relationships. So this means that your attachment style is influencing your adult relationships today in similar ways that you might have experienced your relationship with your caregivers. But you can change it if you're conscious and if you're intentional about doing that. And so this is what you can allow to, this is the way that you can allow yourself to finally have the kind of happy relationships that you desire with a romantic partner going forwards. And so there are four different main attachment styles. So let's talk about what they are and see which one you most likely relate to for yourself. So we might need to have some clarity here, really, about what's going on right now before we can change it and create what you do want instead. And that's why we're talking about your attachment style and where you are right now, right? So let's talk about what these four different attachment styles are. There's two categories of attachment styles. One category is called secure attachment, and the other category is called insecure attachment. In the category called secure attachment, there's one attachment style that's called secure attachment. And then in the insecure attachment styles, there are three different attachment styles. And those are called avoidant attachment, love avoidance, anxious attachment, and then disorganized attachment. So let's go back and talk about the secure attachment style. This is characterized by the ability to form secure, loving relationships with others where you can trust them and you can be trusted by your partners to receive and accept love. You can also allow people to get close to you with relative ease. People with secure attachment aren't afraid of intimacy, and at the same time, they don't panic if your partner needs some extra time away. You're able to depend on others without becoming totally dependent on them and losing yourself in the relationship. Typically, about 50% of adults have a secure attachment style. The other three attachment styles all fall under the insecure attachment category. So that's going to be the other 50% of adults. And so typically, if people are struggling in their romantic relationships to have happy, healthy relationships, typically they're going to fall somewhere in the insecure attachment styles. So let's talk about what those are. I mentioned anxious attachment, and this refers to a person who has a deep fear of abandonment and they don't really feel comfortable getting close or allowing people to maybe take some distance. They often worry that the other person is going to leave them. They feel hungry for validation, and they often feel anxious in their relationships. And so they might exhibit what we might call clingy behavior in the relationship. You may, if you're relating to an anxious attachment, you may feel anxious when the other person pulls back and needs a little bit of space. And they often might feel like the other person doesn't really care about them. And so this anxious attachment style is really the root of codependent behaviors. According to research, about 20% of adults have an anxious attachment style. The next insecure attachment style is called love avoidant attachment style. This type of person has a great fear of intimacy. Even though they really want love, they're afraid of it. And so people with a love avoidant attachment style tend to have trouble getting close to other people and trouble trusting other people. They tend to prefer a bit of distance in their relationships. And on some level, they really are not truly available for a relationship themselves. They prefer to be independent, self-sufficient, and they prefer to rely on themselves a lot. And so according to research, about 25% of adults have a love avoidant attachment style. These type of people are going to experience a lot of push-pull dynamics because they really want love, but they're also afraid of it. And so as soon as they feel like someone's getting too close, then they're going to pull back. And so this might lead them to be alone a lot. Now, the final insecure attachment style is called disorganized attachment, or it might also be called fearful avoidant attachment style. Some of the labels that we're putting on these attachment styles might change depending on the person who is speaking about the attachment style. So you might hear some different terminology here. I think my voice is already getting a little hoarse, it sounds like. So this final attachment style is called disorganized attachment. And the reason for that is because it's really a combination of the anxious and the love avoidant attachments. It's a combination where sometimes they feel anxious and clingy and need validation, and sometimes they feel like the other person doesn't really care about them. And so then in other moments, they're afraid of getting close. They're afraid of commitment. They're afraid of intimacy. And so they pull back. So this disorganized attachment kind of is a little bit all over the place. And that's why it's called disorganized. So these people are reluctant to develop close relationships, even though they really crave love and they really want love, but they avoid it at all costs. So there's this really big inner conflict and they have a really deep need to be loved, but it feels dangerous for them to get too close in a relationship. And so they have this deep fear that someone's going to leave, but at the same time, they're afraid of feeling suffocated by their partner and losing themselves. So I'm curious so far with what I've described here, which of these do you most relate to for yourself? Let's do a little quiz here, and I'd love for you to put your answer in the chat. So I'm going to describe what you might be experiencing in your relationships, and I'm going to put a letter on each description, an A, B, a C, or a D, and you can and I'll put some examples related to the description. And the one that you most relate to, you can put your letter into the chat for us so that we can see what you're most relating to for yourself here. All right. So let's start with A. This person finds it relatively easy to get close to others and feels comfortable depending on others without fearing when other people depend on you. You don't worry that someone is getting too close, and you don't worry about being abandoned. So that's an A. If you fall into the A category, then put an A in the chat for us. And the next category is the B category. So if this relates to you, put a B in the chat. I find that others are reluctant to get as close as I would like, and I often worry that my partner doesn't really love me or that they won't stay with me. And I want to merge completely with another person, and this desire sometimes scares people away that I want so much closeness. That's B. So if you relate to B, then put a B in the chat. The next one is C. So if this describes you, then put a C in the chat. I'm somewhat uncomfortable being close to others. I find it's difficult to trust them completely. I find it difficult to allow myself to depend on others. And I'm nervous when anyone gets close. And I often have partners who want more intimacy and connection than I do, and that makes me uncomfortable. So if that's you, then put a C in the chat. And the fourth category is a D. If this describes you, then put a D in the chat. I experience both, that others don't want to get as close as I want, and I worry that they don't really love me or don't want to stay with me. And at the same time, I also feel overwhelmed and uncomfortable when others want to get close. And I find it difficult to trust others and rely on them. So I find myself going back and forth between these push-pull dynamics myself. If that describes you, then put a D in the chat and let's see where people are, right? I see we have someone putting an A. Thank you very much, Miriam. What about the rest of you? Go ahead and put your answer into the chat for us. And while you're doing that, I'm going to move on, right? Because what we've done here is we've basically just labeled these attachment styles, right? We've put a diagnosis on it. We've diagnosed the situation. And yet diagnosing the situation isn't going to solve it. Although you can go to the doctor and get a diagnosis for a medical condition, that doesn't mean you're cured when you leave the doctor, right? Just knowing that someone has diabetes doesn't solve the diabetes. You have to go deeper and get to the root of what's driving the problem, what's driving the dynamic. And so what's driving the dynamic with an attachment style is something that is at the somatic energetic level of your body. And it's not just happening to you, it's actually happening through you. And although it may have started in the past, it's not just because of your past. Because today, as an adult, these dynamics are being created continually on a continual basis through you and through your energetic self, through your somatic self and your belief system. And that's influencing how you're showing up in the world and the choices and the actions that you're taking and making. Now, the good news is that your attachment style is not fixed. You can change it. You don't have to go to therapy for 20 years to change it, but you do need a process. You do need a process to change it because you actually need to access a deeper level of consciousness and to intercept and interrupt a belief system that's creating the attachment style. So you have to access this deeper level at the energetic level of your being because that's where the attachment style is being originated from. So we have to transform it at that level in order to open the doorway to secure attachment, which is what will allow you to easily create the kind of happy, healthy relationships that you desire. So I want to give you some examples of what it might look like when your attachment style gets activated, right? So let's imagine a scenario when someone disappoints you. Disappointment is where we can get to the root of the attachment style. Because in the moment when we're disappointed, we're probably triggered and reactive, right? So what happens when someone disappoints you? For example, what happens if someone doesn't respond to your text in the time frame that you would like? Share in the chat how you would tend to respond in that type of disappointment. When someone doesn't respond to your text, how do you feel? What happens internally for you? What do you imagine is going on? What are you assuming about the other person and how they feel about you? Do you start to imagine that they're pulling away and no longer interested? That this is the beginning of the end? Do you imagine that they need some space and they're going to come back when they're ready? Do you start to think that you can't trust them anymore? Do you start to think that they're seeing someone else? What's your emotional response in that moment? Where do you go to internally, or what's going on in your mind or in your body? What's happening when someone disappoints you in that way? And I think that this is an example that we can all relate to, a real life example, because there are times in life where people don't respond in the way that we would like, in the time frame that we would like, right? And yet, all of these examples are going to trigger an insecure attachment style. All of these examples are going to trigger anxious attachment or love avoidant attachment responses. So let's talk about what it looks like when someone changes their attachment style. So, for example, when my client Diana started working with me, she had a history of love avoidant dynamics in her relationships. She would run from relationships. She was afraid of people getting too close. She would often put up walls with men, and she would feel that she just couldn't trust anybody, even though she deeply wanted love. And yet she had a very good reason for this behavior, right? She had experiences in her childhood that really created a lack of safety for her growing up. And so Diana was living with her partner. She was in a relationship, living with her partner during COVID. And she had some challenges with that because now they were closer than they'd ever been. And so she would easily start arguments with him. She would not be available for conversations or to connect with him. She would put up walls and shut him out. And he finally got fed up and broke up with her and moved out. And she was devastated. And that's when she decided to get support and she came to me for coaching because she'd lost another relationship because of her love avoidant attachment style and all the behaviors and problems that that was creating for her in her relationships. And so she started together. We started looking at the root of what was driving this attachment style for her and all of these ways of showing up in her relationship. And what was driving this insecure attachment style for her is what we call your false love identity in the Calling in the One program. This false love identity refers to your belief system and the assumptions that you have about yourself or about men or women and how they feel about being in relationship with you, and your assumptions about life supporting you to have a great relationship, and your assumptions about what's possible for you in love in this lifetime. And so when we got to the root of her false love identity, we saw that she had this belief that was just really rooted deep in her. I'm just not good enough. And men are always going to leave me. And I can't trust them. And love isn't safe for me. And so that belief was causing her to unconsciously put up walls to protect herself. It was an illusion of protection, though. She unconsciously was putting up walls and rejecting men as a way to protect herself. And it was a learned coping mechanism in response to experiences that she'd had as a child. But it was still showing up in her adult relationships, even though those childhood situations were no longer happening for her. So she was still carrying out the legacy that she had learned as a child. And so although I'm calling this I'm not good enough a belief, it actually doesn't live in your mind. It actually lives in your body at the somatic energetic level of your body, which is why it might feel in your body, it might feel sometimes out of your control to behave any different way than you do, even when you know that's not in your best interest. Can anyone here on the call relate to that? That sometimes you find yourself doing things that you know are not in your best interest, and yet it feels out of your control to do anything different. So, in working with Diana, we shifted this for her at a deep energetic level, at the somatic energetic level of her being, so that she could relax and show up in her relationships, knowing that she was more than enough exactly as she is, knowing that she has the power to create her own safety with in her relationships with men, and so that now she can trust her ability to understand which men are truly available for her so that she can really let her walls down with those men. So that now she feels confident in her ability to show up in a way that actually allows connection to deepen and happen, that allows safety for her in a relationship, that allows the relationship to grow and bond. And this is what shifted for her. She felt this shift at the core of her being. And so then she started learning the new ways of showing up in the relationships that would allow her to actually feel centered in her true love identity. And these are the ways of relating and behaving that would allow the kind of loving and safe relationship that she wanted to happen, right? So it wasn't just the shift in her energy that we were working on together, but we were also shifting on learning new behaviors. So it was these two things, shifting her sense of self at the energetic level of her being and shifting how she was showing up and behaving in her relationships. So these are the two things that we had to shift, and they go hand in hand. These two things work together. So a few weeks, a couple months actually, a couple months of after us working together, Diana manifested her boyfriend back into her life, and their love grew deeper than it had ever been. So a few weeks after that, after she manifested her boyfriend back, she told me, I have never felt this loved before. I've never felt this safe in a relationship before, and I never knew that I could feel this way with my partner. She felt liberated in her relationship. She felt loved. She felt relaxed. She felt safe. She felt finally free to be herself. And then, about 2 months later, her boyfriend proposed, and then they went to Hawaii to get married. Isn't that an amazing story? I love that story. And so, in just a few weeks of working together, her life and her relationships shifted dramatically. And so, this is an example of how we can change a love avoidant attachment style. Yes, I see people in the chat saying it's an awesome success story. I agree. So I have another client who has an anxious attachment style. She has desperately wanted a partner to love her and commit to her and so that they could get married. She's desperately wanted to get married and create a life together, but that's not what's been happening for her. Instead, what's been happening is she's been really clingy in her relationships. She's been chasing after men, bending over backwards, trying to get them to love her. And we saw what was driving this for her was her false love identity. I'm not valuable. This belief system, I'm not valuable. And so, in her attempt to prove her value and to win the men's love that she was dating, that she would get intimate way too early, right? So her false love identity was causing her to show up in ways that she thought she had to perform in order to prove her value. So she would get intimate way too early, oftentimes even on the first date. And then the men then would tell her, I'm sorry, I really like you, but I can't be in a relationship with you. Imagine how painful that would be to keep hearing that over and over and over from man after man after man. So her belief that the men would just discard her actually caused her to show up in ways and behave in ways that caused the men to discard her. Right? So this false love identity has a way of rooting down into your somatic energetic self so that then you show up in ways that create the exact thing that you're fearing to happen. And this is what's been happening for this client. Now, Kate is another example of an anxious attachment style relationship person. Kate was engaged to a great man, but then she met Jack, who she became so enamored with that she broke off her engagement with the previous man. And she moved across the country to be with Jack, and she really wanted a family. And so she was waiting for Jack to step up and commit and propose so that they could create this life together and this family together. But he kept saying that he wasn't ready. Until finally, at one point, Kate went to her doctor, and the doctor told her, I'm sorry, but you waited too long. You've missed your chance to have children, and it's too late. And Kate was devastated. And she went home and shared this news with Jack, thinking that he would be supportive. But what ended up happening is a few months later, Jack broke up with her because he decided he was finally ready for children. Now, you can imagine how furious Kate would be, especially since she moved across the country and spent 5 years of her life waiting for Jack to step up and commit, which he didn't, and then she'd even lost her chance at having children. Now, here's the thing. Many times it's very easy to see the other person's part, but even if it's 97% the other person's fault, we can't really focus on that because that's not where your power lies to change your future. You have no power to change someone else's behavior. Instead, we have to look at our part, and that's when things actually start to shift. So once Kate started doing that in working with the Calling in the One program, she saw that she had a false love identity. I am never the chosen one. And she saw that that was causing her to turn herself into a pretzel so that she might get a man to choose her. It was causing all of these codependent behaviors that were part of her anxious attachment style. She was overgiving, she was overinvesting, she was clingy, she was needy, she was organizing everything in her life around her partner, and she wasn't giving him any space. She was suffocating him. She was giving up on her own dreams and her own desires just so that she might prove herself as worthy of being chosen. This was all coming from her anxious attachment style. Her false love identity, I'm never chosen, was causing her to perform in order to possibly be chosen as she was auditioning for the role of wife. But it just guaranteed that he would never choose her because she was showing up with all of these behaviors that are very typical of an anxious attachment style. And it's what caused him to not choose her. So once we got her centered in her true love identity, once we got her centered into really being able to relate to herself and relationships from a more secure attachment style, she was able to manifest a new man into her life who actually did step up for her and did commit to her. And they got married and they ended up adopting a daughter together. So she did get her happy ending to the story here. But she had to really see her part in contributing to men never choosing her. Otherwise, she still would have been stuck in that dynamic today. So she had to do this inner work at a radical level first. And so it's really important to shift this felt sense in the body, to find where this attachment style lives in your body and to shift it at the energetic level of your body, because changing it doesn't happen by just diagnosing it and knowing that you have an anxious attachment or that you have a love avoidant attachment or that you have a disorganized and it depends on the person that you're dating. Many people say, well, it depends on the person I'm with. Sometimes I feel anxious, sometimes I feel love avoidant, or even sometimes I feel more secure depending on who I'm dating. Really, we want to commit to us fully showing up healthy in a relationship, not depending on who the other person is that we're dating. We need to do our work to show up fully healthy. And so this is why you can't just tell yourself to relax if you're feeling anxious. This is why you can't just tell yourself to calm down because someone else wants space. Because these attachment styles aren't rational. They're not logical. You can't logically talk your way out of it. I'm sure you've tried that. I'm sure you've tried telling yourself to just kind of let go and relax a little more, or to give someone a little more space, or to show up for a hard conversation. You probably know some of the things that you've been needing to do, right? And instead, when your attachment style is activated, what it feels like in your body is it feels like an emergency. It feels like you need to show up and do something to change the situation. It feels maybe possibly if you're a love avoidant attachment, it might feel like this is an emergency. I have to get out of here. I need to get out of this situation. I'm not safe here. On the other hand, if you're an anxious person, your emergency might feel like I need to get this reassurance from this person. I need to find out what they're thinking. I need to get their attention back. And I need to do it now. Right? And so let me know in the chat, have you ever felt that kind of emergency in your body where it just felt like somehow out of your control, you needed to take action now because that's the attachment style that's in charge. I see people can relate to that you're putting that in the chat. So in my coaching program, I support you to transform your false love identity that's driving the attachment style. And this is what will open the doorway to relating to others from a securely attached place inside of yourself, that you come from a securely attached place and you bring that to your relationships so that you can create the kind of love that you desire. I do want to give you some pointers about how you can start to shift your attachment style even today. And as I'm sharing here with you, as we're going to go deeper in a minute, I want to let you know that if you are inspired by what I'm sharing here, if you're feeling like, wow, this could be a really eye-opening conversation for me to finally shift the places I've been stuck in my relationships, I'm going to put a link to my calendar into the chat here. And you can go and book a love consultation with me to talk about what private coaching would be like to work with me through a series of coaching sessions for you to get support to transform your attachment style at the energetic level of your being so that you can show up in a way that will create secure attachment in your relationships. I do want to let you know as well that my love consultations are reserved for people who are seriously considering coaching with me. All right. So, and are ready to invest in coaching if it's a good fit. All right. So let's talk about a few things that you might start to focus on today to shift your attachment style. All right. So the first thing that you need to be aware of here is that someone with an insecure attachment style is really struggling with their dependency needs and how to depend on other people in their relationships. As human beings, we're all wired for bonding and connection. It's normal to depend on others. It's normal to want to be with a partner. In fact, we actually regulate each other's nervous systems. Human beings are social creatures. We're not made to live in the mountains as a hermit by ourselves. We're actually needing other people in order to be happy and healthy and to thrive in life. We need emotional support. We need psychological support. We need spiritual support from other people in our lives who care about us. It's normal to depend on each other. And so we need to take our stand here for our healthy needs being respected and honored in our relationships. We need to grow our capacity to have a healthy entitlement for our healthy needs being met in a relationship. And yet, what's been going on for most of us is that we've been terrified of being too needy. And so, in response to that, we've been tolerating bad behavior. Let me know if you can relate to tolerating any bad behavior in your relationships. I'm sure a lot of people here on the call can relate to that, right? So we've been tolerating being disrespected because we've been confused about what's appropriate to expect in our relationships. Especially if we're on a spiritual path, we might even strive for unconditional love in our relationships. And while love is unconditional, relationships are not unconditional. Relationships require certain conditions be met in order for a relationship to be healthy. Just as one example, a relationship requires trust. Trust is required, and trust also requires that certain things be in place in order to trust in a relationship. So while love is unconditional, trust is not. Trust depends on certain conditions being met, and trust is needed for a healthy relationship, right? So we've been getting confused about what's healthy in a relationship, what's healthy and appropriate to expect versus what's not appropriate to expect in a relationship. And so let's talk about what are some unhealthy needs in a relationship. So, for example, while it is appropriate to expect that my partner makes me a priority, an unhealthy need might be that my partner always makes me a priority. That's an unhealthy need. An unhealthy need might be to have my partner always text me back right away. That's an unhealthy need. An unhealthy need might be that nobody ever disappoints me or makes me unhappy. That's an unhealthy need. Or an unhealthy need is needing someone to always be happy with me, that they're always happy with me. An unhealthy need would be that my partner never has any needs that don't align with my needs. These are all examples of unhealthy needs. And yet the challenge here is that those are the exact types of things that are going to trigger disappointments in us. And they're going to trigger our insecure attachment responses. They will trigger our love avoidant responses. They'll trigger our anxious responses. They're going to cause us to end relationships and cut people off because we're thinking that we can't trust them. We can't trust the other person to care about us in these cases. These are the types of situations that someone with an anxious attachment style might try to get validation in needy and unhealthy ways. But instead, what we need to do is learn how to respond to the disappointment in a healthy way. We need to learn how to negotiate for our needs. And there's a lot of skills that we need to learn, and we haven't had these skills. So it's time to approach here and grow some inner development that needs to happen so that we can have secure relationships that are based on secure attachments. So these are the things that we really talk about when we go deeper in coaching sessions, right? How to grow our skills, both our inner skills with ourselves and our outer skills with our partners, so that we can have a healthy relationship and relate to our partners with secure attachments. So this relationship that we have to our own needs is an important conversation to be having. How do we relate to our own needs? And this is really important in order to transform your attachment style. Another important conversation to be having in order to transform your attachment style is noticing what your assumptions are about other people when they disappoint you. What are you assuming about yourself? What are you assuming about other people? We had that example of the texting situation, right? And most of us, I think, can probably relate to that. Examples where people don't text us back in the time that we would like. So in that scenario, what are you assuming about yourself, about the other person? What are you assuming is going on in the situation? For you, for example, are you assuming no one's ever going to be there for me when I need them? Or it's dangerous to let people get too close. See, here's evidence that I can't trust them. What are you assuming? Are you assuming that they're going to leave? Are you assuming that you're not good enough? Are you assuming that they're seeing someone else? Are you assuming that this is the beginning of the end? Are you assuming that people always leave you? So we have to see here, what are you assuming in response to the disappointments? And we have to see that actually it's time to intercept that disappointment, because if we don't, we're going to act from the disappointment, and we're going to act from the assumptions that we're telling ourselves, the story that we're telling ourselves. And this story is alive at the energetic level of our body. It's not alive in our mind necessarily. It's not a logical story that we're telling ourselves, but it's causing us to do things that sabotage the relationship. And when we respond from the disappointment, it guarantees that we're going to create more of what we don't want. More of the unhappy relationships, more of the unhappy patterns, more of the challenges and disagreements, and more of what we don't want. So we have to intercept it at the energetic level of the body, more than we need to intercept it at the mind level of the body. So we can't talk our way out of it. It's not going to work very well. I'm pretty sure you've tried to talk your way out of it before, right? Because like I said, when you're feeling disappointed in your body, something gets activated, the emotional response gets activated, and it feels like an emergency. I just need to get out of here. This isn't safe. It's this fight, flight, or freeze response that's being triggered in your body. And so your body is responding more than your mind is in that moment. And so in the Calling in the One program, we have a 7-step process that I guide you through to help give you the tools that will allow you to intercept it in the moment when you're feeling disappointed, right? So that you have an actual step-by-step process and you know how to deal with it. You know how to get yourself out of the false love identity and get yourself centered in your true love identity, where you can actually be conscious and mindful of how you're showing up in those types of situations. So let's go back to the texting example, right? So if you have an avoidant attachment style, in that case, right, if someone doesn't text you back in the time frame that you would like, if you have a love avoidant attachment style, you might not respond to that person. You might think, oh, I might as well not respond to this person because they apparently don't care about me anyway. And then who knows, right? On the other end, we don't really know what's going on for that person. But yet, this love avoidant behavior is possibly going to trigger what happens next. Because if you're showing up assuming that the other person doesn't really care, and this is the beginning of the end, and you might as well not even text them back, possibly, you might be thinking. And then the other person might be thinking, wow, I guess maybe they're not interested in me, right? But we don't know what's really going on, right? For all you know, maybe this person has a very good reason about not texting you back right away. Maybe they are planning something special for you and they're trying to get it all into place. Maybe there was something else going on and we don't yet fully know the story. Or someone with an anxious attachment style might respond to not receiving a text by texting more often, several times, possibly seeking reassurance, seeking validation. They might even start pressuring the other person, saying, where are you? What's going on? Don't you care about me? Are you seeing someone else? So in reality, that type of behavior is going to be quite overwhelming for the other person to receive that behavior. And that might cause the other person to think, wow, that's way too much for me. Maybe this person isn't right for me. And maybe they're then going to back away. So you see what we're doing is we're creating a whole dynamic with our response to what's happening. And yet we don't even fully know what's going on for the other person. We're just triggered in the stories that we're inside of, making some assumptions about what's going on. And so, really, the root of the attachment style is your assumptions about what's happening, and it's causing you to behave in ways that aren't logical. In fact, the other person on the receiving end of this knows that your behavior isn't logical. For the other person, it might even feel a little crazy. And it's causing them to go, whoa, this is too much for me. Or it might be triggering them to respond in a certain way to you that's then creating a snowball effect, that things snowball into an even bigger and bigger challenge. So here's the important thing that you need to hear. If you don't take away anything else than what I'm going to say next, please hear what I'm going to say next as your takeaway. You can, in fact, it would be great if someone takes some notes and puts this into the chat even for us. I love it when we have note takers sometimes. So here's the important thing. You cannot change the attachment style at the behavioral level. You can't just behave in a new way to change your attachment style. I can't just tell you, go have a conversation with that person to understand why they didn't text you back. And the reason is because your energy is what's sabotaging the conversation. Your energy is what's sabotaging the dynamic. It's your belief system that is influencing your energy and the behaviors and the choices. Your belief system is influencing your body language and your facial expressions and your tone of voice. And it's all of that is causing you to make choices and behave in certain ways that sabotage things. So it's not just an energy shift either, though, right? If you haven't changed the energy first, the energy will influence the behaviors, but you also need to change the behaviors too. And so once you're centered in your true love identity, it will be easy to see what would be the new behaviors because it will feel normal and natural for you to say, oh, this would be what would feel good for me to do when I'm truly centered in this true love identity energy, right? So, for example, if you're centered in the false love identity and you go and you have the conversation, not having shifted your energy first, then, for example, if you're this anxious attachment style person, it might come out in an accusing way, the conversation. It might come out in a needy or clingy way, that conversation. And the other person is going to feel that. That energy is going to be in charge of the conversation. And so this is why we can't just fix it by behaving in a different way, right? By doing a different action, by having the conversation, right? So this is what's really important here is that it's two things that are working together to shift this attachment style and to shift the false love identity, right? It's an energetic shift and it's also a behavioral shift. So these two things work together. And yes, there are also some new skills to grow and learn, right? Because there are some new things that you're going to need to do and learn how to do. And yes, there might be some things that you're going to need to learn how to do. And so all of this is part of the 7-step process that I guide people through in the coaching program that I work with people. So there are lots of things that need to happen here in order to really shift your attachment style at the energetic level of your body. And yet, it doesn't need to take 20 years. As I mentioned before, it doesn't need to take 20 years to shift this. It can shift quickly. It can shift in the matter of a few weeks, right? This is what's so profound about this coaching program that I offer people. It gives you a process, it gives you a step-by-step way to intercept what's going on so that you can really get yourself out of that moment when you're in the fight, flight, or freeze moment, where in that moment you can't even think straight, right? And so we have a process to intercept that so that you can show up in a way that will really move you forwards, right? So it's important to become aware of also how your attachment style is also causing you to choose people and make you choose people who might be making you feel anxious or unsafe, who might be also playing out the attachment dynamics with you, right? So you could be attracting the perfect people to continue the whole insecure attachment dynamic. So we really have to unravel this so that we don't keep repeating these dynamics for ourselves. So everything that I've been sharing with you so far today is how I support people in coaching. So I can help you identify and release and transform the false beliefs and assumptions that have been driving the attachment style. And it will help you transform the patterns that you've been finding yourself in your relationships. It will help you identify this false love identity that's been driving your attachment style. It will help you transform these ways that you've been sabotaging your love life. And it will help you really create the kind of relationships that you do desire, the happy, healthy relationships that you do desire to create in your love life and in your relationships. And the good news is that this uplevels all of your relationships. Whether you're currently in a relationship that you want to uplevel, whether you want to find a relationship, whether you're with a partner and you're not sure that you want to stay with the partner, or you're trying to work it out and improve it, this program can really support you at all levels, no matter where you're at. Right? And in the Calling in the One program, it is a program that is rooted in the law of attraction as well. So we do get to have fun with manifesting practices as well, which is really great. So really, we have the tools. You'll have the tools, you'll have the skills to really know how to have this moment, this support be a game changer for your love life, right? So that you can really navigate any of the challenges that might come up in your relationships. The reality is that even when you find a perfect partner for you, a soulmate for you, there will still be ups and downs in the relationships because all of us are human. We have to learn how to have disagreements and how to be disappointed. As I mentioned earlier, we need to learn how to approach the disappointments that happen. Even with your soulmate, sometimes they're going to have needs that don't align with your needs. They're sometimes going to have things that happen where you feel disappointed. And we need to learn how to respond to those moments because those moments are the make or break moments that decide the future of the relationship. So we need to learn how to respond to these ups and downs that might be happening in your dating life, right? We need the skills to navigate these challenges so that you can create the kind of love that you desire, right? So I'm going to put again my link into the chat. And I invite you, if you've been inspired by this conversation today, to reach out and schedule a love consultation to talk with me about what it would look like for private coaching with me. I did see someone who asked about my fees, my coaching fees, so I will be transparent about that. And I also do have my fees listed on the calendar page as well, if you go to my calendar page. So I normally offer this program as a series of 12 weekly coaching sessions, and the sessions last an hour for each session. And you do have homework in between the sessions so that you really get the most out of our time together. You're going to be applying the material in your relationships right away, no matter Whether you're single and preparing for a relationship, or you're dating, you can apply it to those situations, or you can apply it to relationships with coworkers, family, friends. Maybe you're in a relationship, you can apply it in your relationship. No matter where you're at in your relationships, you can apply the material in your life right now. So my fees for these 12 weekly sessions is $2,400 up front for the full amount of the sessions, or you can do a monthly payment plan of $850 for 3 months. I also mentioned that I have a free gift for those who stay on till the end of the call. So thank you for staying on with me. So you will be added to my email list, and I want to encourage you to keep an eye out for the first email from me because there's a free Manifest Your Soulmate meditation in that first email. And I've had so many people give me great feedback from that meditation. So do keep an eye out for that email and the meditation. I would love to hear your experience of the meditation. Now, I want to also encourage you, if you've had some insights in our time together today, let me know in the chat what's been your takeaways from our time together today. And let me know your questions as well. If you have questions about anything I've shared, I'm going to stay on a few minutes and take questions. And I do want to let you know that hopefully you've had some insights here about how to change your attachment style. And yet, insights are not the same thing as change. Insights don't necessarily lead to change. You could have insights 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and still not have anything change in your relationships. And the reason for that is because insights don't equal change. Instead, we actually have to be taking the new actions. We actually need to be showing up, engaging the practices that will create a new outcome. We actually need to be showing up in our life in new ways and applying some things that actually will change your life. And so you need to know the exact things that will change your life, right? In order to show up in those new ways. But we need to be applying the insights in our life. We need to be applying what we've been learning and applying the shifts that we're making in our life. I think we all know that we need to exercise. We all know that we need to eat healthier, right? And yet knowing it doesn't make it happen, right? Knowing that we need to exercise doesn't mean that we're going to lose the weight. Knowing that we need to eat healthy doesn't make us healthier, right? We actually need to show up, go to the gym. We actually need to eat the food that's healthier. We actually need to put the actions into practice. And that's the same here. If you want the better relationships, you actually need to be putting in the practices and doing the exercise and making the things that will change the outcome for you, right? So let me take a look here at the chat. And I want to see what questions or comments people have for me here. So we have a comment that people love the term false love identity. Yes, that is a term that comes from my mentor, Catherine Woodward Thomas, from the Calling in the One program. I also forgot to mention here that I am honoring a 10% discount. I should have mentioned this earlier. I'm honoring a 10% discount for those who schedule coaching packages with me before May 24th, Saturday, May 24th. Let's see. Question, will you be delivering, will there be a replay? And yes, there will be a replay, Jess. Thank you so much for the question. I believe I hit record. Last time I did one of these sessions, I forgot to hit record, but it looks like I did hit record this time. So there should be a replay that I will be sending out for you. Thank you so much for the question. All right, everyone, this is what I have to share with you this evening. It's been a pleasure to spend time with you. I don't see any other questions here in the chat. So thank you, and I look forward to having you in my community. And please do keep an eye out for an email from me with the Manifest Your Soulmate meditation. That's all I have to share with you for now. Have a nice evening. Bye for now.